Hello, world. Our guest today embodies a unique blend of art, science, and a bit of magic. As a marketing executive, he thrives on creative storytelling that connects audiences in memorable ways. And as a business leader, he understands the importance of earning trust and exchanging value with his community. And as an engineer, he knows that the most impactful thing we do are a mix of art and science. He's a speaker, author, trainer, and fractional leader who brings all these ideas to life, helping businesses unleash the power of remarkable content and human connection in the digital age. Please join me in welcoming Tyler Lessard, CMO of TechnologyAdvice, to the show. Tyler, are you ready to get radically transparent with me?
Woohoo! I am so ready, Jen. Thank you so much for the kind introduction. I am ready.
Absolutely. Let's do this. You were one of the original radically transparent guests. And I know that you've accomplished so much since your time at Vidyard and since we've last hosted you. So, welcome back. And we are going to kick off with the show's most famous question. Tyler, what is keeping you up at night professionally these days?
Oh, goodness, Jen. I mean, so many things, of course. I'm sure everybody says that. So many things keep me up. But, the biggest thing for me is, am I placing the right bets? Like, am I focused on the most impactful things for my team and for the business? And I mean, you've been in this world of marketing a little while, Jen. I've been in this, it feels like, for 130 years. And I got to tell you, like, as a marketing leader, it doesn't get any easier year after year. In fact, it seems to get tougher and more complicated every
Right.
year with all the different places, all the different channels we could be reaching audiences on, all the different content formats, all the ways we could be generating demand, all the ads they're probably not even seeing. It's hard. And so I'm always thinking about, am I placing the right bets? Are we doing the things that we need to be doing to have an impact? It's always so difficult to know.
Yeah, I can relate to that, especially after a call I just got off of now when we were reviewing the impact of, all of our marketing activities and setting up, for Q4. So, do you sleep? Would be the next logical question.
I
Um,
do.
right,
I
but
do. I sleep well. I sleep well knowing I am very excited about what I'm doing, that I am, of course, informing all of those decisions on, are we doing the right things or not, on a lot more than just gut feel, though, gut feel is still a part of it.
yeah,
And I sleep well because I have a wonderful team around me that, I think does the best work in the business. So those things certainly do help me sleep.
that's amazing. Now listen, I know you've spent considerable time building out, next gen content and media strategies. You've been in the industry 130 years, right? So can you share your approach to this? Because I know when we caught up, you mentioned an outside in mindset, and it piqued my curiosity. So how are you ensuring you're truly building this,
Yeah.
outside in mindset, and what does it even mean?
Yeah. It's something that really just evolved for me over many years of managing, content marketing, social media, audience development, and right down into lead generation and demand generation teams. And really thinking about, how do we embrace, like really embrace, audience empathy and truly becoming a trusted advisor to our community, to our subscribers, to our audience members. The easier part of marketing really is the, like, direct response conversion for people who are showing high intent, right? Like, for marketers, those are the great ones, right? There's these handful of people who come in that they're showing all the signals. We know they're looking to buy something. We can engage those people, we can flip them to sales, and we can work those. But of course, that's a very small percentage of our target audience, and we need to be doing a lot more than that. And so I'm always thinking about, how do we build those relationships with audiences that aren't yet ready to buy? How do we serve them as an audience community to build that trust, to, again, I use that term, like building a relationship with our audience. And the idea of being outside in is really taking an audience first approach. And the way I think about it is, most of us as marketers, we think inside out. We start with, what do we care about, right? As a business, as a marketing team, as a product, who are we trying to target? And then we think a little bit about like, what do they probably want to hear about? But we still very much start with what do we care about and what do we want to influence them on?
Yeah.
But the outside in approach and mindset is really, it's very simple. What do they care about? Right? Like, let's take us out of the equation. What do they really care about? What do they deserve as an audience? Like, what challenges are they really facing? What do they really want to engage with? How can we add value to their day-to-day lives? And it may not always be based on what we want to talk about. And so being really intentional about being audience first, having that outside in mindset. What does our audience really care about? What resonates with them? And how do we serve them in a better way? That's what really fires me up with my content, social, and audience development strategies.
Yeah, listen, hearing you speak about that as a marketer, and it's like in my blood, right? We want to make sure our audience is front and center, right? And I feel, amongst my peers and in the B2B marketing space, so many of us strive for this,
Mhm.
but it feels often that we're only embracing it halfway.
Yeah.
How can brands from where you sit or with your experience go deeper in understanding and reaching that audience where they live and where they are and what do they truly want? Like how do we
Yeah.
tap that?
I think there's a couple things to it, a couple things I've learned over the years about how to, first of all, get better at understanding your audience. And many of us as marketers, we know and love the persona frameworks and our ICPs. And that stuff's really, really important, right? Like those are the fundamentals. We need to know what are the types of people we're trying to reach? What are their typical titles? What are their typical problems? How many cats do they have? Those sorts of things that usually flesh out our typical persona work. But over the last number of years, there's like a lot of other things we need to ask ourselves to really understand where are these people hanging out? What kinds of things are they actually most interested in engaging with? What do they have affinity for? What resonates with them? And part of that has come from the proliferation of different channels, different content types, and just different ways that today's buyers interact with brands. So, for example, all of you marketers listening right now, like when was the last time you asked the question, who are my typical target audience's favorite follows on social media? What are their favorite podcasts? What are their favorite YouTube channels? But then ask an even more important question. Why? Why do they love those podcasts? Why do they love those YouTube channels? What is it about those people they follow? What is it about those influencers that they engage with consistently? Why do they engage with them so much? And those are the things that start to give you a better sense for what the kind of affinity, what kind of resonance happens in your market space to get you to that extra level of not only knowing who you're trying to target, where might they be, but how can I best resonate with them and
Yeah.
build a brand relationship. And I think that's a really important starting point for how we think about evolving, how we think about our audience and really putting ourselves in their shoes in an outside in kind of approach and being what really like makes these people tick and what do they say they love about like content or thought leadership or people that they're following.
I think it's fascinating because, right, we always want to get into the shoes of our audience. And what always, I guess, captures my curiosity most is as a marketer, how do you balance, right, the authenticity with what you're gaining, right? What podcasts are they listening? Who is their favorite follow
Yeah.
with like your marketer's strategic event or like your
Sure.
marketing instinct of being strategic with your intent and how you market? Where's the balance?
Yeah. I mean, we always have that bias where we're like, oh, I know they like say this, but like I think people over here, like I can better convert them, or like I know that they all love like humor and memes, but they're more likely to convert if they read one of my research reports. So I think that's really what they want and need, right? And we often have that bias, and it's natural and it's understandable. And but we need to, I think more broadly about the spectrum of the audiences we're trying to engage. And I think being mindful that, absolutely, we still want to be engaging those folks who are actively in market, looking for solutions, searching for specific phrases or terms. We want to build our inbound content to cater to those people. We want to make sure, if we're selling an HR platform, that if somebody is actively searching for, new HR technologies, we're showing up and we're educating them on that specifically. But at the same time, again, that broader community, let's continue with that example of HR leaders who aren't yet ready for a new platform, and they might not be for another 2 years or until they find a new job somewhere else. The question is, how do we build a relationship with those people? And
Mhm.
the conversion centric content that we've been trained to build as marketers isn't going to work, right? Because they're not ready to learn about a new HR platform. And that's not what they're searching for. That's not what they're looking for. They're engaging with more, I call them generalists in the community who are who they can relate to, who are sharing interesting wisdom, interesting ideas, sometimes who are making them laugh about relatable things within their space. And they're really serving them as an HR leader, not as somebody who's trying to sell them an HR platform. And those who really serve them as an HR leader, who's bringing their own unique perspective, ideas, exclusive insights they can provide, but not always turning that into a, oh, thanks for engaging in this. Now, sign up for a demo, right? Because again, that's not the way we're going to build a great relationship with these people.
Yeah.
So some of it is easier said than done, like it's very much easier said than done. It's hard to do in practice. But if we can think about investing in those spectrum of audiences, not just who's in market, but how do we build a relationship with those who aren't today but will be tomorrow, it changes the way we think about our marketing strategy. It is harder. It does take more investment, but the long-term impact, it's just like any other kind of like brand building, but it's focused on engagement. It's focused on creating those relationships. And I think we need to be smart about how we invest in that in addition to our conversion-centric programs.
Yeah, yeah, makes sense. So one of the terms you threw out in the last, 7 minutes was favorite follows. So
Hmm.
in the honor of favorite follows, who are some of yours?
Well, of course, first of all, it's Oktopost and Jen Gutman, everybody. Like, how could you not want to follow the wonderful content that you're putting out there? But it's interesting. Like, and I love this question. I ask it if I present on this topic. That's usually how I start. I'm like, can you think of any folks out there who are you consider your favorite follows? And you can go in your personal life, but I'd also love to hear in like your business life. And often people will be like, yeah, okay, I can think in my head like 3 or 4 people who like whenever they post something or if I'm on their newsletter, like whenever I get it, I'm like, I'm in there. And then, I ask them like, okay, well, like, what is it about that like that they're putting out there that like draws you in? And then my last question is, if I ask any of your prospects or customers who their favorite follows are, would you be one of them? And they're always like, heck no. Like, I'm not one of their favorite follows. My brand isn't like, we're not that good. And then you're like, well, why not? Like, that's like, push yourself, right? You can be that good. So anyways, I'm not trying to avoid your question, but some of my own personal favorite follows who inspire me. There's lots actually in the business world. I came from spending a lot of years in the sales ecosystem, and there's just some like really wonderful people out there like Jen Allen Knuth, who I absolutely adore, Will Aitken, who I actually brought on to partner with to be our kind of our media personality and thought leader for Sales Feed that we built. He still makes me laugh every day, but every time he does, there's always a word like some wisdom in there. I'm laughing, and then I'm like, oh, but I see what you're getting at. You're totally right. Travis Tyler in the marketing space is somebody who just like every time he posts, I'm like, yep, I'm pausing what I'm doing. I got to see what he has to say today. And often it has nothing to do with my job, but the way that he conveys ideas and puts them out there, inspires me as a marketer. But also, again, like half the time I'm like, oh, yeah, but that's really interesting what you're talking about. I can take something from that. And there have been lots of like brands, again, both like the sales and marketing tech spheres that I've always adored. Actually, one who's more of a personal brand, some of you may know, is Anne Hanley from Marketing Profs.
Huh.
Anne is just the best, right? Like if you know Anne Hanley, you love Anne Hanley. There's no like black or white here. Like it's like you love Anne Hanley if you know Anne. And she and the Marketing Profs brand behind her or as part of her, I love as well. But Anne, she has an incredible newsletter called Total Anarchy, and she's written a couple books. And again, she's another one where I'm like, when her newsletter lands in my inbox, I'm like, what do you got this weekend? Like, I just want to read it. And there's one other individual, Jay Akunzo, who I'd put in that same camp, who talks a lot about actually some of the things we're talking about here, about like really building an audience, building trust, building a community. And he's another one where when he posts something, when his newsletter lands in my inbox, I'm like, what do you got? Like, let's go. And like those are the kinds of favorite follows that we should all aspire to be as brands or, when we have thought leaders in our companies that we should be trying to be.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's interesting, especially like mentioning Anne. I feel like in our industry, I'm with you. Like anything Anne is tweeting or posting or writing, I'm always reading.
Yeah.
Um, but what's also interesting, and Octopus, we're in the social space, so we speak to a lot of people around influencer marketing, and especially in the B2B space. And it's interesting because I often hear a lot of times, well, oh, we don't have, we're not an influencer, we don't really have an influencer. And it seems to be holding companies back to building or becoming those great follows. How do you think brands can overcome that roadblock, or have kind of like that
Yeah.
identity to be able to drive the right social talent or become the right social talent to build that following?
Yeah, I mean, it's tricky because it's hard to like build a steadfast business case for, if we, either hire somebody who's going to be a great kind of like influencer or like personality, or call it what you will, a creator. Um, it's hard to know like what is the, specific ROI on that. And it's still different from like how we've traditionally built teams and the kinds of people we've invested in. So I think we're still at a point where you do have to like, yeah, you do have to trust the process and have, if you believe in it, if you have an expectation that having somebody like that as part of your business is going to move the needle, you need to think about how you're going to really like build around it.
Yeah.
And one of the things that um, I often like to challenge people with, and this isn't always the best way to build a business case with your CEO for something like this, but think about like, can you find any of your like competitors who are doing this, or even again, like other brands who have like an incredible thought leader or somebody who is out there on social or is authoring their newsletter that clearly is building a strong following, is really resonating with their community. And when you find those folks, and even like you ask internally, you're like, hey, like, wouldn't it be amazing if we had somebody like that? Like, nobody's gonna say no. Like, heck no. Like, why would we want to do that, right? Like when you can have that really great reference point, and even like again, like that's part of the case. It's not the full business case, but like when you're pitching this to your marketing leader, to your CEO, like give those references and say like, wouldn't it be great if we had somebody who like was able to do this, or was able to build an audience, or who was able to like generate this kind of like engagement from the following? People are usually going to be very much like, yeah, of course that would be amazing. They're probably not the right person. And you're like, no, 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 I wasn't going to go hire them unless I can. But, what we need to find is like our version of that, right?
Yeah.
And when you can give somebody that kind of reference point of something they can like look at, they can see, they can relate to, it becomes a little bit easier. But then the second part of it is making sure like you have to build the program and process around those individuals, right? Because it's like just hiring a great influencer or creator and saying like, all right, go nuts, isn't going to necessarily have the kinds of results you're looking for. They can probably get out there and create a bunch of followers, but you also have to pair it up with, okay, if we bring somebody in like this, if we build somebody up to be a social media talent, call them an influencer, call them a thought leader, call them a community builder. How are we going to build the programs or processes around them to make sure that as we do build that following, as we do see that high engagement, we're able to understand how we can convert those people over time into paying customers?
Yeah.
And doing that right up front and giving that a lot of thought is really, really important. So you can present it as, we want to do this. And by the way, here's how we're going to activate that in a way that's going to actually drive material long-term demand and ROI.
Yeah, yeah. Well, listen, it's very like all the things that you're saying, right? And the fact that audience building, it's beyond just gaining the followers and building that community. And I always joke, right, when it comes to community building, it's like a startup within itself, right? Like it's like it's
Yeah,
a man the machine. But when we talk about, right, that conversion, I would say, like in the context of audience development, right? Because at the end of the
yeah,
day, if we're going to embark on whether it's building a community or growing your followers, you need to still present some sort of
yeah,
ROI behind what you're doing. How do you think brands can be more intentional about driving conversions through content or social in
yeah,
the kind of in this realm of audience development, and whether it's social as we know it, or we can throw in dark social
yeah,
if we want. I know that
yeah,
sometimes comes to play.
yeah. Yeah, the way that I think about it is as you as you are really like evolving your audience development, community, social media programs, is being really intentional in creating um, kind of your own little like micro funnel for that community. And I think about it as I've got this kind of like really simple framework that I use called if you like this, you'll love this, and you might need this. Okay. So it's like the three kind of tiers to the three stages of the funnel, really. So the if you like this is the content, is the engagement that we're putting out there into our broad community that's freely available for everybody to really build an audience, right? So we're actively, again, we're taking an outside-in approach. We're thinking very much about what do they care about, what resonates with them, what drives them. Let's serve them as an audience and build that brand relationship. Great. That's great social media content. It might be great YouTube, podcast, whatever it happens to be. So we're putting this out there. And now what we want to be intentional in is periodically in those streams of communication, we are presenting opportunities to them to say, if you like this stuff we're putting out here, you're going to love this. And those you're going to love this are our like next conversion points down. They're kind of our mid funnel, right? So these might be again things that are more they're often things that are like opt-in because we're marketers, we're always trying to get contact details. So they might be like exclusive research reports. They might be a weekly newsletter or a bi-weekly newsletter that you have to sign up for, right? They could be templates, they could be guides, they could be white papers, right? It could be like whatever your community you think like really thirsts for. Those are your like next stage down. But you have to be like really intentional in saying, we're gonna expose these to this broader audience that we have periodically over time to give them opportunities to kind of self-select to say, oh yeah, that's really interesting to me. Right. And like as marketers, we kind of do that in our day-to-day of marketing, but we typically rely on like nurture emails to like known audiences or other things. But I don't think like whereas we're often not like intentional enough in saying these broader communities that we're building, let's expose them to these offers. And then you'll love this. And you can even use that phrasing, right? You can be like, if you like, our memes, you'll love our weekly newsletter, right? Like that's a great way to convert people from first stage to second stage. Now you've got them in some kind of ongoing communication because you've got their contact details, you've got their email, but you also have a great brand relationship with them. So now, again, you're probably including them in some kind of additional comms. It might be your newsletter, it might be something else. And that's where now you can start to surface those. And you may need this moments
Mm.
where you are starting to promote what you do, right? But if they're at that point and they have that brand trust and relationship, it doesn't come across as too salesy, right? And especially if you do it in a way that frankly isn't too salesy, if you're giving them opportunities to raise their hand.
Yeah.
And that's where, like, again, I've done this number of times where that newsletter is the midpoint. And in the newsletter itself, yeah, it's got some great general content. It's got some things that are going to make you laugh. And there's probably going to every once in a while be in there a little announcement from us, right? Like, hey, really excited to announce we just launched this awesome thing. You should go check it out. Or we're hosting like a really great webinar next week to share like how our customers do this. Like if you're interested, check it out. If not, carry on. Like nothing to see here. We'll be back in your inbox next week with other things. So giving people those opportunities, then you can create that funnel and you can track those conversions and you can see how many people are moving from the I love this, I like this content to the I love this to the I need this.
I love that. I love that, and I need it. So with that being said, Tyler, I've got to ask you, what is something that you can tell us about yourself that we actually cannot learn about you from your LinkedIn profile?
Oh gosh, Jen, oh my gosh, how do I answer that? I don't know if you sent this to me ahead of time, but I'm not prepared for this question. Oh my goodness. Well, one thing you like, if you dig far enough, it's not hard to find, but I'll use it though, that you mentioned in your intro that like as an engineer, and that's kind of part of my bio. So I actually graduated university with an engineering degree. I'm not a marketer by trade. I'm faking it till I make it. Still faking it, folks. But I graduated as an engineer, actually systems design engineering. I started as a software developer in my career many years ago, just over 20 years ago. And I realized very early on that I wasn't actually a great coder, but I loved technology. And I also, found an affinity for really loving to like teach people, like help people, support people. So I quickly moved into a role where I was supporting people who were writing software and kind of like building a community around it. And that's really where I started to my journey as a marketer. But I look back on those days and like it was such a valuable experience for me to come with that technical background, but now feel like I'm in a place where, I can tell stories to audiences, I can relate to them, I can help them solve problems. By understanding what my products really do, but focused on like building those connections. And that's like really like has driven me throughout my career.
So it is like radically transparent truth that you truly embody the blend of art and science. That is
Yes.
fact.
Yep, we went science and art, and then the little bit of magic that I mentioned is really just marketing magic that we all know and love. It's those things we get to do as marketers that make people go like, "Oh, what was that?" Or like, "How did that happen?" Those are the things I really love. Those things that really, surprise our communities, and those like surprise and delight moments. Those are what I consider to be a little bit of marketing magic mixed in there. Yeah.
I love it. So, for anyone listening in who wants to talk more marketing magic, perhaps dive a little bit more into the outside in approach or looking to build meaningful audiences and truly get in their shoes,
Yep.
where's the best place for people to reach you?
I'm a LinkedIn guy, so please, Tyler Lessard, you'll find me on LinkedIn, CMO at TechnologyAdvice. And please follow me there. Feel free to DM me anytime if you have like questions or things you want, feedback on, or if you need a therapy session for, your sales team telling you your leads suck, any of those things, more than happy to help. So yeah, connect with me on LinkedIn and let me know if there's anything I can help with.
Fantastic, Tyler. Thanks for joining us back on the show. And hopefully, we will have you back for many more soon to come.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks, Tyler.